the Damian Lillard thing from yesterday. It's an NBA executive has been quoted anonymously as saying that the Bucks are reckless, that bringing in that much Miles Turner for that much money is a super curiosity. What are you laughing about?
Because why are they reckless? Why aren't they allowed to do with their roster what they want? Why is it I mean, is it a bad choice? Yeah, probably, but it's reckless. Reckless for whom?
For the Bucks.
But it's their franchise. They can do what they want. It's their roster.
Reckless because you might lose Giannis because it's not the move that he wants?
Well, which do you think was more likely? Losing Giannis by bringing in Miles Turner or losing Giannis by not bringing in Miles Turner?
I would assume the reason that GM would consider this move or their flurry of moves reckless is the multiple years where when you don't really know how this is going to work out with the complementary pieces, where Giannis and sometimes was kind of playing center last year, so how does Miles Turner complement that? I can understand why a GM would look at what they're doing going, whoa, you're committing a lot of money long-term to a roster that if you don't have Giannis is going to probably be a disaster.
But which is more reckless, doing this or not doing it and risking losing Giannis? That's more reckless.
Well, I would say and will say that the Bucks have more information than we do. And because they have more information than we do, I'm assuming that they're doing every possible thing to keep Giannis, or they already know that Giannis is gone, and so they're doing every possible thing to replace Giannis. Windhorse has said on television that if Halliburton hadn't gotten injured, the Pacers would have likely paid the tax and just tried to keep Miles Turner.
Dan, have you looked at the potential starting lineup for the Milwaukee Bucks next season? It is sad. Kevin Porter Jr., Gary Trent Jr., Kyle Kuzma, Giannis, Miles Turner.
Portis is in there somewhere, right? No?
Six-man, and they might trade him too.
The thing that I wanted to talk about, though, from yesterday, and I still want to talk about, and for some reason I cannot keep the attention span engaged from our basketball fans. They keep changing the subject on me to the future transactions as opposed to what happened yesterday, which is I saw a headline that read Damian Lillard waived, and it was confusing to me. And I know he's injured, and I know that he's the age that he is, and I know that you've spent a year, more than a year, knowing that Damian Lillard isn't what he was. But to have a contract that has 2 years on it, $110 million, and to have the Bucks say, waived, we have no use for you, and the punctuation on this part of your career has been about as disastrous as it could be for someone who was in your position at the end in Portland. It's not something we've ever seen before, and for some reason around here yesterday, everybody wanted to skip right past it because of how quickly we will discard even the most famous of basketball players.
How about that trade was just 2 years ago, and literally all of the pieces in that trade are no longer with the teams they were traded to. Boston, Portland, Milwaukee, none of those guys are on those teams anymore. It's only 2 years ago.
The interesting part about that, because I remember what Woj wrote about Portland at the time and how it was a bit of poetry that was overwritten on behalf of, just people being fascinated by GM transactions. But the Miami Heat did not believe the Boston Celtics could get into the game and create a Drew Holiday package to get Drew Holiday from them, and didn't believe that anyone had a better offer than what they were offering for Damian Lillard. But once Boston offered Time Lord and the pieces that they offered that were broken, right? Brogdon, just a bunch of physical pieces that were broken, the Heat did concede by their assessment that the offer that Boston made was better than the offer that they had on the table. And so while we look at it in retrospect and say those were a bunch of damaged pieces, like Brogdon and Williams and those guys didn't end up being any good, the bet that Portland was making was that some of them would indeed be good, and the Heat's assessment on that was that the pieces that were offered there were better than what the Heat were offering.
But the Heat are likely saying to themselves right now, we're glad we didn't make the Lillard trade, right? I mean, even without the Lillard's going to miss most of next season, like even before that, they're glad they didn't make the trade, right?
They are, but I still want to simply concentrate as Damian Lillard right now has to feel a bit broken and shell-shocked, physically broken, but shell-shocked that he's in a position that the last part of his career has been so mangled that his headline has the word waived in it. Like, the last time I remember sort of being Brandon Roy in terms of potential where I'm like, oh, it's just all over. Like, there's no chance that he recovers from any of that. I saw I got aggregated for saying that Lillard is now done as a star. Like, that's the most obvious thing in the world, is it not? That he's done as a star, that person will never be an important player. Doesn't mean he can't make baskets, doesn't mean he won't be a role player, but leading a team, being a centerpiece on a team, or being the second best player on a team, that's not a good team. Like, his movement is going to be affected by that injury in a way that has made the Bucks make the assessment that has no value, even though we have to pay it $50 million a year. Just go away. Just get off of the roster. I still can't really get my head around it, even understanding that this is a player that has been injured for a while. And I guess a lot of people have moved on from Damian Lillard before I moved on from Damian Lillard.
But you would acknowledge Damian Lillard yesterday, like, even though maybe it was shocking originally when he finds out, wow, I'm getting waived, Damian Lillard was a big winner yesterday. Like, a huge winner yesterday. I don't know if he got to a place where he liked Milwaukee, he adjusted to it, he was okay with being in Milwaukee, but his employer yesterday literally told him, here is all of your money, not a penny short, and guess what else? Go do whatever you'd like. We're not limiting the things you could do. Here is all of your money, and you can do whatever you want, which is essentially what he wanted 2 years ago, and what he wanted was to come to Miami. He didn't get what he wanted. Well, now you get all of the money and do whatever you want. Like, he was a big winner yesterday, Damian Lillard.
The Athletic reported that he was, quote, elated
I'm sure.
with what happened yesterday because of that exact thing. He gets all of his money, and now he can go choose wherever he wants to go. He can pick whatever contender he wants to play for. He was elated, is how they put it.
Also, Chris Haynes, though, reported that Giannis didn't like what they did yesterday, and we were talking about how you always have to go to the roots on who's reporting what and why something's being leaked. Chris Haynes is known as being Lillard's guy. He's the one who has perpetual access to Lillard. What did you make of the report that Giannis wasn't happy about what they did yesterday, trading for Miles Turner?
Not believable. It's just not. I mean, maybe Chris Haynes has bad information. Not believable. Like, Giannis is upset that in a year from now, he's not going to be able to play anymore with a 36-year-old coming off of an Achilles injury. Giannis upset about that?
Chris Haynes' information is rarely wrong. Like, this is not somebody whose information is disputed very often.
I would think if he got that inclination from whoever it would have been that's close to Giannis, it would be because he just didn't like how it was handled. Because the reports that are out there, including from Chris Haynes himself, are that Dame wanted to spend his time rehabbing in Portland so that he could be around his kids. We know his personal life has been a little wild in the last few years, and that was something he wanted to do, and apparently Bucks management was not happy about that, which is what facilitated this decision. And if Dame was caught off guard, I can understand Giannis at least looking at his ownership and front office and saying, like, man, I don't love the way you guys went about that with a guy who I like.
But then that's a super misleading headline then to say Giannis not happy with the way it went down.
I don't know that it was a headline. It was just a piece of the reporting.
It could be more macro, too. The way that they stretched and waived it, all of a sudden you got money on your books for the next 5 years where you're trying to get pieces to be a contender, and you're looking around saying, we're paying how much for Miles Turner? What his original salary is plus what we waived Dame for? Like, that all adds up.
That's the recklessness that you're talking about, right? There's a tweet here from Yassi Guzlan, and it says the Damian Lillard trade had risk, and the worst-case scenario ends up happening. They're down Drew Holiday, an unprotected first, 2 swaps, and now they have to pay Lillard $22.5 million a year not to play for them for the next 5 seasons.
But that is an effect of today's NBA, where every one of these teams that has a star player is afraid. They're afraid of one day their star player coming into the office and saying, I'm not happy. And so as a result, this is the kind of stuff you have to do, because it doesn't matter if a guy's signed to a contract. You're a free agent every single year. That right there is the effect of today's NBA.
If I'm Lillard, I'd Bobby Bonilla it. Give me 5 over the next 20.